Dear Brenda, I never imagined that a simple invitation to a family reunion would mark the beginning of the worst nightmare of my life. We were on the road, Ethan and I, laughing at dumb jokes on the radio and making weekend plans. His family had organized a get-together after years without seeing each other, and even though he seemed hesitant, I was excited to finally meet them. But everything changed in a matter of seconds. As soon as we saw the sign pointing to the dirt. Rode toward the farmhouse, I noticed Ethan grow visibly tense. His face went pale, his hands started sweating on the wheel, and silence took over the car. I asked if he was okay, and he just mumbled, "It's fine." But the way his jaw tightened said otherwise. Then he whispered, almost breathless, "Turn the car around." At first, I laughed, thinking he was joking, but he turned to me with a look I had never seen before. He was pale, almost panicked, like something awful was about to happen. "I'm serious. Please turn the car around and drive away," he said, his eyes wide with dread. That froze me. My heart started racing, and every instinct in me said something was very, very wrong. I asked what was going on, and he dodged the question, saying he didn't want to reopen old wounds. But his tone wasn't sad, it was scared, pure fear. I pushed for answers, but he kept insisting it was best if we left. By then, my whole body was trembling. The man I had loved for 6 years was acting like we were about to enter a battlefield. And I had no idea why. He didn't yell, but his voice had this dark urgency. He said it wasn't the right time, that no one wanted to see him, and that things could go badly. The more he begged me to turn around, the more I needed to know what he was hiding. This was supposed to be a family gathering, or at least that's what I thought until that moment. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. "If you go in there, everything you think you know about me will fall apart." It hit me like a punch. I asked what he meant, but he just lowered his head and stayed silent. I pulled over, Dear Brenda, when we got back home, Ethan went straight to the bedroom and closed the door without saying a word. I sat alone on the couch, staring at nothing, my thoughts racing. What could be so dark, so shameful that he'd rather lie to me than let me see it for myself? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, pale and terrified. The next morning, I told him I needed space to think. He didn't fight me. He just nodded like a man defeated, and I packed a small bag. I said I'd stay at a friend's for the weekend, but I was lying. I drove straight back toward that dirt road, the same one that had made him panic. I needed to know what was buried there, and why it had shaken him to the core. The air felt heavier the closer I got to the farmhouse. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with each mile, unsure of what I was walking into. Part of me hoped I was overreacting, that maybe it was just an old family argument or painful childhood trauma, but deep down, I knew better. This wasn't grief, this was fear. Fear of being exposed. When I pulled up to the house, it was like stepping into another world. The property was beautiful in a haunting way, quiet, too quiet. A few cars were parked in the grass, and laughter echoed from the back. I hesitated before getting out. Would they even recognize me? Would they welcome me or shut the door in? My face like they'd been trained to. I walked around back and saw a group gathered under a large oak tree, sitting at picnic tables, eating, drinking, and catching up. An older woman with silver hair looked up first. Her smile faded when she saw me. A few others turned to look, and their faces shifted from curiosity to confusion, even discomfort. Something about my presence was clearly wrong. I introduced myself as Ethan's wife. That alone caused a ripple of whispers and exchanged glances. "I'm sorry," the silver-haired woman said carefully. "Did you say you're Ethan's wife?" Dear Brenda, I tried to stay calm, but inside, everything was unraveling. These people didn't just act surprised, they acted like I wasn't supposed to exist. And what kind of man tells his family his wife is dead when she's very much alive? I started to wonder if I'd even scratched the surface of who Ethan really was. How much of my life with him had been built on lies? I looked around at their faces, some filled with pity, others with suspicion. No one asked how I had survived or why I was there. They just seemed uncomfortable, like I had interrupted a story they were all pretending was true. I felt like a ghost at my own funeral, watching everyone trying not to stare too hard or say too much. One young woman, maybe in her early 20s, pulled me aside and whispered, "I don't think he ever expected you to come here." I asked her who she was, and she introduced herself as Maya, Ethan's niece. She looked nervous, as if even speaking to me was dangerous. He said you died before I was born, she added, but I've seen pictures. That stopped me cold. Pictures of me? I asked, confused. She nodded. I remember seeing a wedding photo once, hidden in a drawer. When I asked about it, he got angry. Brenda, I felt like I was slipping into a version of my life that existed without me. A parallel world where I had been erased and rewritten by the man I trusted most. Maya leaned in closer and said, he didn't want anyone asking questions. And we didn't. That's just how things are here. Her eyes darted around nervously as if someone might be listening, but something about the way he talks about you when he does, it never sounded right. Like he was afraid you'd come back. That sent a chill straight through me. I thanked her, still reeling, and walked away slowly, needing to breathe. I found a bench near the barn and sat down, my mind racing. Dear Brenda, I decided to stay until someone gave me a real answer. If Ethan had spent years creating a lie about my death, there had to be a reason, and it wouldn't be something small. I wandered further toward the barn, where a few older relatives were gathered, quietly playing cards and drinking lemonade. Their laughter faded as I approached. A woman with sharp eyes and gray curls looked up first. You must be the wife, she said, her voice flat. The one that was supposed to be dead. Her words hit me like a slap. I asked her what she meant, and she shrugged. Ethan told everyone you were gone, car crash, said it tore him apart. Then she gave me a look that said she never quite believed it. I introduced myself properly, hoping someone would talk to me with some humanity. Her name was Ruth, Ethan's aunt. She invited me to sit and offered a glass of lemonade, her gaze never leaving mine. If you came here to find out the truth, I hope you're ready for it, she said. Because, honey, it ain't pretty. And it sure as hell won't go down easy. I leaned in and asked, why would he lie? Why tell everyone I died? Ruth stared off for a moment and said, because he's always been good at starting over. When things get complicated, Ethan runs and rewrites. She took a sip of her drink and added, I saw it with his first wife, too. She just vanished. One day, no one heard from her again. My blood ran cold. I asked her name. Ruth said, Melanie, sweet girl, married him young. She was quiet, but not stupid. I think she started asking too many questions. Brenda, I couldn't breathe. I had never heard that name before. He had told me he'd never been married. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting with every word. Ruth said. Ruth reached into her purse and pulled out an old photo. I kept this because something about her disappearance always sat wrong with me. She handed it to me. The woman in the photo had soft eyes. That night, I checked into a small motel just outside town. I didn't tell Ethan where I was or what I had learned. I needed time to process it all. My phone buzzed with missed calls from him, but I ignored them. He had lied about too much for too long. I wasn't ready to hear more lies. I needed facts. I needed clarity. I stared at that old photo of Melanie, comparing it to my own wedding photos. It was chilling how similar our smiles looked, full of hope, unaware of what was to come. I wondered if she ever felt the shift, the quiet fear creeping. And like I had that day in the car. Did she try to leave, or did someone make sure she couldn't? The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I figured if Ethan had a legal past he tried to bury, it might show up somewhere official. The clerk was kind but suspicious when I said I was looking for marriage and missing persons records. I gave her the name Melanie West, the last name Ruth had mentioned, and waited. After a few minutes, she returned with a puzzled look. We have a marriage license for an Ethan Ward and Melanie West, dated 1999, but there's no divorce record. I felt sick. That meant Ethan had never officially ended his marriage with Melanie before marrying me. I was legally married to a man who might still have a wife out there or a widow. Asked if there were any police reports or missing person files under her name. She hesitated, then said quietly, there's a sealed report. That usually means there was an investigation, but it's restricted. That only made me more determined. What happened to Melanie? Why had her story been locked away like some family secret? Back at the motel, I finally picked up one of Ethan's calls. His voice cracked with relief. I was worried sick. I drove back to Ruth's house the next morning. I didn't call ahead. I needed to see her face when I asked what I was about to ask. She answered the door with a knowing look, like she'd been expecting me. You found something, didn't you? She said. I nodded, and she let me in without another word. The house felt colder than before. We sat at her kitchen table, and I placed the wedding photo of Ethan and Melanie on the table between us. He never divorced her, I said. Ruth's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the picture. I knew it, she whispered. I knew something about this wasn't right, but I never thought he'd go that far. Her voice cracked with emotion. I asked if she remembered anything strange after Melanie disappeared. She nodded. He told us she left a note and took off, but she was a good girl. She wouldn't leave without saying goodbye, not to me, not to her sister. I asked if anyone saw the note. Only Ethan, Ruth said. He said he burned it. Claimed it was too painful to keep. The more I heard, the more it felt like a pattern. Ethan controlling every detail, shaping every narrative, erasing every loose end. I asked Ruth if she ever reported her suspicions. She looked ashamed. We were raised to keep family business inside the family, she said. We didn't trust the police. And honestly, I was scared of what I might find out. Then she told me something that chilled me to the bone. The day after Melanie disappeared, Ethan borrowed my truck. Said he needed to clear his head. I asked where he went. Ruth looked at me slowly. Said he drove out to the lake. Was gone all day. Came back with muddy boots and a torn shirt. Wouldn't talk about it, Brenda. I felt my stomach turn. I had never even known there was a lake near the farmhouse. Ruth saw the look on my face. You thinking what I'm thinking? She asked. I nodded slowly. We need to go there, I said. Ruth hesitated, then finally agreed. I'll take you, but we... Dear Brenda, the road to the lake was quiet, lined with tall pine trees that blocked out the sun. Ruth drove slowly, her hands gripping the wheel tightly. We used to come here for picnics, she said. But no one's gone down there in years? I could feel the weight of something unspoken between us. A place like this didn't just get forgotten without reason. When we arrived, the air felt heavier, colder. The lake was still, almost too still, like it had secrets sleeping just beneath the surface. Ruth pointed to an old dock, half-rotted, jutting out into the water. That's where he used to fish, she said. Sometimes he'd be gone all day, wouldn't come home till after dark. We walked along the edge of the lake, stepping over fallen branches and patches of soft earth. I found myself looking for disturbed ground, for anything that looked wrong. Then Ruth stopped suddenly. This is it, she said. This is where he parked the truck. The grass was long grown over, but the soil was still strangely soft beneath our feet. I crouched down, running my fingers over the ground. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe something that would change everything. Then Ruth handed me a small gardening spade from her bag. I brought this just in case. Brenda, my hands were shaking. I had never done anything like this before. We dug in silence, foot by foot. The first layer was just dirt and roots. Then something caught the light metal, a small rusted locket. I pulled it out, wiped it clean. Inside was a photo of Melanie. Ruth gasped. That's hers, she whispered. She wore it every day. My chest tightened. Why was it buried here? We kept digging, but after an hour, we stopped. No bones. No body, just the locket, buried like a forgotten memory. But that was enough. Enough to know this place mattered. That Ethan had come here with something to hide. And maybe he hadn't. Buried her body. Dear Brenda, we left the lake in silence, the locket wrapped in a handkerchief and tucked into my bag like fragile evidence. I kept thinking about how close I'd been to never knowing any of this. If I hadn't shown up at that reunion, if I hadn't met Ruth, I might have gone on believing the version of Ethan he wanted me to see. That realization terrified me. I drove straight to the city the next morning. Ruth gave me the name of a private investigator she trusted, someone who had once helped her neighbor in a custody case gone wrong. His name was Cal Rhodes. Rough voice, sharp eyes, the kind of man who could smell a lie before you even opened your mouth. I handed him the locket and told him everything. He listened without interrupting. Then he leaned back and said, I've seen men like this, charismatic, controlling. They don't just want love, they want control of the whole story. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Can you help me find out what really happened to Melanie? He didn't hesitate. I'll do everything I can. Brenda, it was the first time in weeks I felt like someone was actually on my side. Cal promised to pull Melanie's financials, phone records, and anything else that might lead to her last known location. If she used a credit card, made a call, filed a complaint, we'll find it, he said. That hope lit a fire in me. I hadn't felt since the beginning. While Cal worked, I stayed in a rental apartment under a different name. I didn't want Ethan knowing where I was. Not until I was ready. He kept calling and texting, alternating between apologies and anger. One message said, "You're ruining everything." That told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't. Sorry. He was scared. I didn't respond. I needed him rattled. I needed him to feel the ground shifting just like I had. That's when I got an idea. I sent him a single photo of Mel. Dear Brenda, the storage facility was in a forgotten part of town, tucked between a shuttered pawn shop and an old tire warehouse. Cal met me there with 2 coffees and a crowbar. They gave me the key, he said, but sometimes it's what's behind the lock that's tougher to face. We walked down the narrow hallway, the echo of our steps thick with tension. The door creaked as we opened it, revealing boxes stacked to the ceiling. Some were labeled with years, 2000, 2003, 2008, but most were unmarked. Dust coated everything. At first, it looked like junk. Old papers, electronics, faded clothes. But Cal scanned the room like a hawk. These aren't just leftovers, he said. They're records. Someone's archive. I opened the first box labeled 2000. Inside were photos, dozens of them, of Melanie. Some candid, some posed, some clearly taken without her knowledge. In one, she was laughing in a garden. In another, she was crying. A chill ran down my spine. Ethan had kept them all, as if cataloging her every emotion. It felt obsessive, disturbing. Then I found journals. Not Melanie's, but Ethan's. His handwriting, sharp and meticulous. Brenda, they were terrifying. Pages upon pages detailing his thoughts, his frustrations, his views on control. One line still echoes in my mind. Love is loyalty. And when loyalty dies, so does the person who breaks it. My hands trembled as I read it. I showed Cal the entry. He nodded slowly. This man didn't just love her, he possessed her. It was all becoming clearer. Ethan had... Dear Brenda, after handing everything over to the agent, Cal and I sat in the parking lot in stunned silence. The truth was now out of my hands, but it was finally in the right ones. I asked him what would happen next. They'll build the case, he said. Quietly. They'll want to catch him off guard. I nodded, both hopeful and terrified. The next few days were the longest of my life. Ethan went quiet again. No calls, no texts. It was like he'd vanished, but I knew better. He was watching, waiting, planning. That silence didn't comfort me. It paralyzed me. Every knock at the door made my heart stop. Every shadow in the hallway made me jump. Then on a Thursday evening, there was a knock. Cal had warned me not to open the door for anyone, but I looked through the peephole and saw a bouquet of roses lying on the doorstep. No delivery man, no car driving away. Just the flowers and a note. The handwriting was familiar. Too familiar. It was Ethan's. I didn't touch the note. I called Cal immediately. He arrived in under 10 minutes, gloves on, camera ready. This is intimidation, he said. He knows we're close. He's trying to rattle you. The note was short. You never understood what loyalty meant. But you'll learn. That one sentence was enough to freeze me. We took the flowers and the note to the agent, who added it to the growing file. They promised a protective detail if things escalated. But I didn't want to hide. I was done hiding. Ethan had stolen enough of my peace, my past, my sense of safety. It was time he lost something too. His mask. Cal had a final idea. You want to flush him out? He asked. Let's go public. At first, I resisted. I didn't want... The public response was overwhelming. Messages poured in, some supportive, some filled with fear, others from women who recognized the patterns in their own lives. But what shook me most was a message from a woman named Claire. She said she had dated Ethan briefly in between Melanie and me. She thought she was imagining things. Claire agreed to meet. She brought photos, text messages, and even a recorded voicemail where Ethan raged over her lack of loyalty. The same word again, loyalty. It was his obsession. Brenda, Claire said he isolated her from friends, tracked her phone, and once hinted that Melanie wasn't strong enough. It was chilling. We shared all of it with the agent. They now had 3 women with matching stories and a pile of physical evidence. A warrant was issued. Ethan's house was searched, but he was already gone, disappeared like smoke. No credit card use, no phone pings. The agent said he's either running or planning something. That thought haunted me. I doubled my locks. Stayed at Cal's place when I felt unsafe. I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside sounded like him. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself. But then something unexpected happened. Melanie's sister, Angela, reached out. She had seen the news. She wanted to talk. Angela had always believed Melanie had simply run off. The family assumed she cracked under pressure and vanished. But now, with the evidence mounting, Angela was angry. "We trusted him," she said. Dear Brenda, the police moved fast after the discovery of Melanie's journals. A new warrant, a statewide alert. They began tracing old aliases Ethan had used in past business dealings. One lead pointed to a small town in Oregon where a man, fitting his description, had recently rented a cabin. Under a fake name, they moved in. He didn't resist. He never does, not when the power is taken from him. They found surveillance equipment in the cabin, maps, a burner phone. Brenda, he was watching us, planning something. The agent said I likely saved my own life by going public. That Ethan may have been preparing for a final act of control, facing trial. Ethan sat in court like he always had, calm, confident, even smug. But this time, the women he hurt sat in the front row. Claire, Angela, me, and behind us, strangers who saw their own pain in ours. Melanie wasn't forgotten. Her voice was read aloud. Her words made the courtroom still. He was found guilty on multiple charges, including unlawful confinement and obstruction in a missing person case. They're still searching for Melanie's remains, but now the world knows who he is. And he'll never charm his way into someone's home again. Justice didn't bring her back, but it stopped him. After the verdict, I went to the lake one last time. I brought a candle and placed it near the shore where I first found the locket. I whispered a promise. You were seen. You were heard. You mattered. The wind picked up gently, as if carrying her name across the water. I felt peace for both of us. Brenda, sharing this story was terrifying.